Ed has decided on his next expedition. It's a place his viewers are sure to love, a place that brings back memories even though the amusement park now stands long abandoned. Preparing for his journey, he plays the same old recording of Isaac Indigo, the original park owner. It seems to be filmed around the 1950s, and he's announcing the opening of Indigo Park, calling it a newfound paradise that offers you a slice of the American dream, a place that pays homage to the values, dreams, and unwavering truths that gave rise to our great nation. That's quite the speech, Mr. Indigo. Too bad a mysterious incident resulted in the evacuation and closure of Indigo Park in 2015. And our mission? To learn why the park shut down and avoid the reason for its closure that still lurks within. Indigo Park is a highly popular indie mascot horror game, and tonight we're covering Chapter 1, anticipating what's to come in Chapter 2, and looking at some of the theories and findings throughout the game. I'm Mo, and welcome. I've timestamped the video, so if you're already familiar with this story, you can skip right to the analysis portion. So sit back, get cozy, and let the nightmare begin. The camera zooms out and we see this footage of Isaac Indigo playing on Ed's computer. Then the title song, reminiscent of Gravity Falls, plays in the background while we watch glimpses of Ed's room and research on the park in preparation for his journey. Ed's been to the park many times before while it was open, his childhood photo taped to a poster of Molly McCall, one of the park's mascots. Then there's the online conversation between Ed and his childhood friend Laura. They seem to be partners and content creators set on exploring abandoned places. Ed asks Laura if she'd like to accompany him on his next search, but she declines when Ed mentions he's going to Indigo Park. She feels uneasy that she can't find information about the park's current status online. Cops could be swarming the place, but Ed clearly has a site pulled up. It kind of seems like a site to purchase a package to the amusement park with options to buy tickets, add a dining plan, and note whether he plans to stay in a resort hotel. We then see footage of Ed entering through a gate with a lot of no trespassing and private property signs, and eventually through an employee entrance, the date on the dash cam showing us October 7th. Once Ed arrives at the amusement park, it's dark, destroyed, and filled with shipping boxes. Vancouver, British Columbia is marked on many of these boxes directly under the Indigo name. But since Isaac Indigo's speech indicated the park was located in America, perhaps these boxes were being shipped to a storage facility or even another Indigo Park location before the park's abandonment. Armed with only a flashlight, Ed searches the entrance and sees one of the walls has mostly collapsed, the painting of Molly McCall on the surface now missing her head. It looks like something devastating happened here, like a massive earthquake, as there are large pieces of concrete lying everywhere. A camera watches Ed as he nears a staff door, it turning to capture his movements, and once he approaches, the door opens. He enters the dark room, sparks fly, and a monitor turns on.
Hi there, and welcome to Indigo Park, the world's most innovative and engaging family fun experience. Jump into the world of your favorite character.
This is Rambley the raccoon, an AI assistant to the park. He's a bit glitchy, yet he notices that Ed is the first guest in 2,920 days, or 8 years. He wants to make Ed's experience at Indigo Park the most fun it can be. He guides Ed to the nearby registration desk, but he can't find his face in the guest list and questions if this is Ed's first time at the park. But we know from his room that Ed has been here before, so this is a little odd. And although the present date is clearly pictured on the screen beside him, Rambley starts to make things up, telling us it's Rambley Tuesday so that Ed can get free admission. Head over to the main gate only to find the doors shut tight. Rambley fabricates a game that Ed must play in response. Turn the generator on in the staff room by finding the missing gear, and Ed can finally enter the park. More cameras watch him as he explores the main entry, and Rambley appears on a nearby monitor. He does this a lot, by the way. He sends Ed to the Critter Corner gift shop to obtain a critter cuff, which is similar to the magic band available at Disney parks. The critter cuff, however, has a lot of features that we hear about from Rambley but don't actually need or use in the game, such as a pedometer, heart monitor, and mood ring. It does, however, let us open certain locked doors, and after the gift shop door mysteriously locks, Rambley instructs us on how to use it. Exit the gift shop, use the cuff to go further into the park, and come face to face with an eerie golden statue of Rambley and Isaac Indigo. This is another homage to Disney, where a similar statue of Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse can be found in multiple Disney parks. Most of the park is inaccessible because of debris, so Ed wanders into a nearby tunnel, only to have the entrance collapse. Nice. No matter, Rambley's Railroad is just up ahead, and riding the attraction will take us to the other side of the park. It's on this attraction that we meet Molly McCall, both the character and the creepier real version. Only Molly isn't quite ready for introductions just yet. But Finley, though shy, appears as another part of the attraction, stating that he's known Rambley for 100 years and encourages the ride-goers to try his Oceanic Odyssey attraction because he's extremely lonely. Next on the train ride is a forested area that's been destroyed, and it's here the train breaks down. Rambley is stuck glitching, and it's up to Ed to leave the ride to repair it. On the ground is a broken cutout of a mascot we've not yet seen, but we'll come to learn is Salem the skunk. But more on them later. Open the back entrance to the ride, and waiting for us is an old animatronic of Molly McCall. Her eyes light up and the dialogue is warbly and weird, but it sounds like she's saying something along the lines of,
"Not Rambley. He hurt Lloyd. He hurt Lloyd."
Continue on, and there's also an old Finley animatronic and the phrase Lloyd's limos painted on the wall behind him. Ed finds the missing gears to power the ride, successfully returns to the train, and leaves. Next up is Lloyd the Lion's performance, but Rambley is less than thrilled to see him, going so far as to cut the scene short by dimming the lights and moving on while Lloyd is mid-sentence. At the end of the ride is a set of photos from the experience, and if you look carefully, we can see Molly has been following Ed the entire time. But Rambley seems to be unaware of her presence. In the new area of the park, Ed can explore places mainly to obtain collectibles. Rambley directs him to an information kiosk where he can present these collectibles to learn more about them. Our next destination is a place called Jetstream Junction, but we need the key located at Lloyd's main stage theater. Enter, and we see a large lion sleeping on stage. And as it hears Ed approaching, it runs behind the curtains. Rambley waits for Ed backstage and warns that beyond this area he can't see anything, although there were active cameras in the back room. He warns Ed to be careful, then leaves. The back room is filled with boxes, and from the corner we can see the lion now standing on two legs and looking, well, wrong. As Ed makes his way through the box maze, Lloyd charges, his claws red and bloodied, but thankfully a large box falls on him, forcing him to retreat for now. Ed journeys on and comes across an older golden statue of Lloyd stored away, one that looks very similar to the statue at the front of the park. Enter the staff office, grab the key, return to the door, and use the critter cuff to open it. As Ed does so, Lloyd attacks. Ed would have been done for, but the critter cuff emits this high-pitched sound, and Lloyd falls to the ground, retreating once more. Well, that was a close one. Ed returns to Jetstream Junction with key in hand, where two more attractions are located, Molly's rooftop races and the landing pad. There's also a playable arcade game in which Molly has crashed her plane, and it's up to Rambley to save her. He collects rambleberries, jumps over purple squirrels, and oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. Rambley finally makes his way to Molly, and we officially see Salem. In the game, she's depicted as a villain who used a smokescreen causing Molly to crash, then uses her purple potion to make Molly attack Rambley. Salem calls her the new and improved Molly, saying that without the friendship and happiness crap, now we can see what Molly really thinks of Rambley before tearing him to pieces. The fight ensues, Rambley wins, and Molly screeches before the game crashes. A virtual Rambleberry appears before Ed as a reward, defying the laws of physics. He then makes his way up to Molly's rooftop races, only to find the ride destroyed. Rambley is visibly upset and calls the repairman, only to find the number has been disconnected, and I'm assuming it's because he's calling a number that's over 8 years old. Rambley then sends Ed to Molly's landing pad, calling rooftop races an exhilarating ride that Ed went on, though, yeah. Enter the landing pad, and Ed will have a not-so-pleasant encounter with Molly as she chases him through the tunnels, nets, and trampolines until he eventually makes it through a series of vents and into a restricted staff room. As Molly is about to strike her killing blow, the door slams down onto her neck, decapitating her. And unlike many mascot games, Molly is flesh and blood. A lot of blood. Rambley is trying to ignore the situation, but he can see through facial recognition that Ed is scared, confused, and angry. He confesses that the park has been inactive for years. He had been confined to the front entrance for so long that he hadn't realized how far the park had fallen into disrepair. But just maybe, with Ed's help, Rambley could restore power to the park and get it operational again. Ed enters the security room and makes his way to another area of the park, this time the Oceanic Odyssey attraction. And just as Rambley is introducing us to this area, we see Finley swimming by, a long, terrifying sea monster with his side covered in blood. Chapter 1 ends and Rambley sings us an adorable song while the credits roll.
Visiting Indigo Park, hope all your dreams came true. If you've got some time and you're up for a lark, stick around for the Rambley review. I'm here to offer my best to each valuable guest I assist. And lots of happy...
Developer Mason Myers, or UniqueGeese, has stated multiple times that he enjoys Disney, and as other analysts have pointed out, this is evident throughout the game, from the statue of Isaac and Rambley to the critter cuffs, Isaac's speech, and more. Even Indigo Park's logo looks like a Mickey Mouse hat, and during a live stream, Mason stated that Rambley was a Mickey Mouse parallel. And while I've never been myself, I learned that Disney's magic bands can interact with golden statues within the park, causing them to speak or make noise, and I wonder if we'll actually see this function utilized in the critter cuff for the statue of Isaac Indigo and Rambley. And speaking of the statue, Isaac Indigo's head follows us. Terrico mentions this in his Hidden Details of Indigo Park video, but while he calls the statue cursed and believes it's not a camera used to spy on parkgoers, I'm not so sure. It seems to have the same motion sensor capabilities as the other cameras, but why hide it if so? I noted at least 10 cameras just in the beginning of the park up to Rambley's railroad, all active and following Ed's movements. Yet when we finally reach the security room, only 8 cameras are shown on screen. And these are cameras from all over the park, one within the Oceanic Odyssey area. I couldn't see where the golden statue was transmitting, so does this mean it's not a camera? Again, I don't think so, because if we enter the back of the main stage, Rambley tells us that he can't see back there to assist us, yet there are 3 cameras following our every move. 3 cameras that are active and once again are not in the security feed. I think that someone else is watching us aside from Rambley. Someone who is perhaps monitoring the mascots, knowing what they are and trying to keep them contained, similar to Edward Crow, the park owner in Crow Country. As we've learned through Molly's demise, they're not animatronics, and a lot of evidence suggests there's some form of real animal hybrid or experimentation gone awry that the park employees and even guests mistreated and thought little of. There's the blood showing us they're real, then these phrases spoken by Molly during both the chase scene and Ed's death scenes if captured.
It barely hurts at all! I want to play with the baby!
Don't touch that thing, son. Get up, you stupid freak. Get back in your cage, bird.
Molly can mimic words she's heard before, and while many of her lines are from the railroad attraction while stalking Ed, these stood out as experiences from her past. The references to Molly being in a cage also coincide with the secret portion of the arcade game, where Rambley finds a caged Molly hidden below the level. And if that doesn't convince you enough, there's also this quote from Mason himself when comparing Indigo Park to the upcoming game Zoocosis.
And it's something that I think the Indigo Park dev team, if you guys are watching, we need to be taking a look at, because it's exactly like what we're going for. It's like these animals have been mistreated and they're fucked up, you know?
So who did this to these animals? While many believe that Salem the skunk is the true villain of Indigo Park due to their actions in the arcade game, we have to remember Salem is another animal just like the rest of the cast. I believe her potions reference how the animals have been experimented on, yes, but not by her. Isaac Indigo's opening speech talks about the exciting potential of tomorrow, where dreams come true. Another park owner intrigued with overreaching innovation? She's a mascot like the others, and even if she ends up being responsible for the park's closure, it may not necessarily be her fault if experimentation and mistreatment forced her to be more aggressive. But if Salem isn't the true villain, then is it Rambley? Can we really trust him? Well, yes and no. Rambley is incredibly glitchy throughout the game, and we clearly see him lying throughout as he creates new ways to make Ed's experience at the park more fun, even though it's in shambles and Ed's in a walking nightmare. He also seems to blatantly ignore the mascot's presence. This is definitely suspicious, but when you consider that Rambley is artificial intelligence, his behavior actually makes a lot more sense. I'm not an expert, but I've come to understand that AI models are trained using data and develop their predictive capabilities by identifying patterns within that data. However, if the training data is biased or incomplete, the AI might make faulty predictions or even generate information that isn't true. These are called hallucinations and are essentially lies that AI create to fulfill its objective. And as we've said, Rambley's objective is to ensure parkgoers have a fun experience no matter what. Because his training did not include an unpredicted park closure, Rambley is forced to create hallucinations to meet his goal in this new environment. That, as he says in his song, is a stark contrast to everything he knows the park should be. But this doesn't make him evil. Perhaps a little naive and misguided, but I don't think he's the mastermind behind the mascots and their behavior. Mason further confirms that Rambley doesn't turn evil during a live stream, and if you watch any of his streams or videos, he's very adamant about keeping the lore a secret for now. So for him to come right out and say Rambley won't be evil feels pretty sincere to me. When the broken Molly animatronic says not Rambley, he hurt Lloyd, many people see this as a sign of Rambley's malevolence. However, without the full picture of what Molly saw, we could interpret this message in another way. Not Rambley. He hurt Lloyd. As in, it wasn't Rambley that hurt Lloyd, but someone else. We see blood on all the animals in the park, and we're quick to assume that they recently killed or harmed someone. But the blood could also be their own from wounds inflicted by an animal wrangler. But again, who could be the mysterious he? For this bit of grand speculation, I turn back to Walt Disney and his parks since the developer garnered a lot of inspiration from them. When Walt died, his business partner and brother, Roy Disney, became the chairman of the company and subsequently the park owner. Though they had a great relationship in real life, Indigo Park and Isaac Indigo seemed to parallel the phenomenal success of Disney World and Walt Disney. So what if Mason went in a similar direction, but darker? Roy was heavily involved in the creation and prosperity of the Disney theme park, so if our mystery villain was also, it would explain why they're currently able to go undetected and how they have additional surveillance on us, perhaps in the secret room that's only accessible to royal wranglers. As brothers do, Walt and Roy fought sometimes, and I think Rambley's relationship with Lloyd serves as a hint to Isaac Indigo and his brother, just as Salem hints to another person harming the animals. It's believed by a lot of theorists that Lloyd was the original icon for Indigo Park. He is originally painted on the wall behind Isaac Indigo during the opening speech, and the collectibles suggest that his image was used way more in the past. There's also the older gold statue behind the main stage, and then there's the image of Lloyd and Rambley on the railroad attraction, in which Lloyd is handing over a deed to Rambley. This could reference Rambley becoming the new icon, taking over the railroad ride that was once Lloyd's limos, but it could also symbolize the transfer of park ownership from Isaac Indigo to his successor after his death. If Rambley symbolizes Roy Disney in this situation, again with a darker twist, he would be the new successor with all the responsibility of ensuring parkgoers enjoy themselves in return. Meanwhile, Lloyd's character is still designed to be the showman, the main star of the park on his own stage. In reality, Roy hasn't received a lot of recognition for his contributions to the Disney parks, yet Walt is a household name. If the new successor was also responsible for Rambley's design and AI training, and Isaac more integral to Lloyd's creation, then Rambley could have a natural resentment towards Lloyd as a result of transference from his programmer and creator. At the beginning of the game, we see Ed's conversation with his friend Laura, but just beneath this is a note. Indigo Park left 2. Now this could very easily be the title to Ed's upcoming video, Indigo Park left to ruin or something like that. But what if Ed is trying to discover who the park was actually left to? What if Isaac Indigo is responsible for the animal mascots? Then the park was left to his brother after his death, and he, resentful but still obligated to maintain the park, and Isaac's mess with the animal experiments. What if his brother is the one watching us and currently keeping the animals contained within the park? This would mean there's no true villain, except for the people who created and mistreated the animals, and that Rambley's desire to restore power, though well-intentioned, would result in the animals being set loose or eventually harming returning parkgoers, and Well, that just can't happen, can it? We know Lloyd and Finley are still alive, and perhaps Salem, but what if there's also a Rambley mascot that we haven't met yet? What if there's more? One of the collectibles is a Rambley head from an old costume that Ed tells us was since retired. If you click on it near the information kiosk, Rambley will play the recording associated with the costume in his database. It's 2 park employees concerned they'll be out of a job now that the new mascots have arrived, even though they just got the Rambley costume. This recording is meant to pay homage to a FNAF fan game called Day Shift at Freddy's, but this dialogue and other collectibles gives us a little timeline. Ed has been attending the park with his family since he was a kid. The text from the Rambley head, however, suggests that the costumes were retired prior to Ed's visits, as he doesn't have a concrete memory of them. Rambley has never seen anyone wearing the costumes either, meaning they were retired prior to AI Rambley existing. The Molly McCall plush suggests that the new animal mascots were introduced to the park when Ed was younger as well, as he and his mother went to see Molly at the new meet and greet. All this to say that if the other characters originally had costumes, then received real animals as mascots, why not Rambley too? There's a period of time before the AI's creation and the retirement of the costumes in which the new animals arrived, a time in which the park would need a Rambley animal mascot. And if the park is as massive as a Disney park, it would make sense for there to be multiple copies of mascots throughout the park, so attendees could have their various meet and greets and photo ops. I can't imagine, with as popular as Rambley is, that he was only accessible to park goers as a virtual assistant. So it makes me wonder if we might see a physical Rambley and return of Molly McCall, or at least another version of Molly, in the future. Now, I really have no other supporting evidence to go off for these following theories. Well, not really theories, but just things that I wonder, so let's call them quick curiosities. For starters, Mason confirmed that the crumbling wall at the entrance showing Molly's missing head was intentional foreshadowing regarding her death. I wonder if some of the other characters' fates are also already depicted. In the critter corner, a large plushie of Lloyd is buried under rubble, which foreshadows the instance where the crates fall on him backstage. But what if it's also how he meets his end? Then there's Finley's animatronic in the back of the railroad. He's tangled in wires, and I could see this as a means of escape for Ed, especially since the ride is closed for repairs. There could be wires and debris present to stop his attack. Mason also mentioned that the idea of falling into water and possibly being crushed by underwater animatronics is terrifying, so I really think we'll see Ed falling into the attraction in Chapter 2, which is honestly going to scare me to death because underwater horror elements are terrifying for me. Another stretch, but wouldn't it be wild if Molly recognized Ed from the meet and greet he attended with his mother as a kid? What if those lines Molly mimics about the son wanting to play with the bird and the mother telling him not to touch it was a conversation between Ed and his mother, said all those years ago? Her recognition could be why Molly stalked Ed for so long, curious as to see why he seemed so familiar before finally attacking him once he's gotten too close. Another thing I'm curious about regarding Ed is that though he's visited the theme park as a child, Rambley doesn't know him when using facial recognition. At first, I thought that maybe it's because Ed visited another Indigo Park in another location as a kid. This would make sense as to why he was on the park website in the beginning, to get directions to the current park he's never visited. But it could just also mean that Ed stopped attending the park prior to Rambley's creation as an AI for some reason. I also wondered why Rambley seems to ignore the mascots and doesn't warn Ed about them. I think that maybe in order to meet his objective for a fun experience, he reasoned that telling Ed about the mascots would have scared him away and he didn't want that. Then once inside, he knew the critter cuff would protect Ed against Lloyd and figured he could keep an eye on him regarding Molly. We know from the critter corner that Rambley can control the doors, so when Molly gets decapitated, that's Rambley's doing. He most likely saw Ed's death as ruining the objective, and by gauging the two options, Molly's death became more preferable and logical to him. But Molly is supposed to be Rambley's best friend, and in the ending song he even says how important the characters and their reunion are to him when he says,
"Till all my old friends are united again, and I won't feel so left behind."
But killing off Molly would prevent that. Unless the mascots aren't Rambley's true friends. When he finally confesses something is wrong with the park to Ed, he calls them mascots instead of friends, so it seems he knows the difference. So it makes me wonder who or what Rambley considers to be his true friends in the park. Perhaps they were other AI models of the different characters. They played more minor roles like certain attractions or hotel check-ins, but after the incident at the park, the AI models might have been put into a low-power hibernation mode due to energy-saving protocols. In this mode, they would retain their state and can quickly resume normal functioning once power is restored to the park. Rambley says he's been stuck at the front in registration for so long, maybe because what little power remains was diverted to the front for security reasons. When Ed restores the generator, this gives Rambley a bit more access to other limited areas of the park, but it's not enough power to bring his friends out of hibernation. And finally, one last thing I'm curious about is why the critter cuff worked on Lloyd but not Molly. Mason stated the sound is a dog whistle, which is effective for Lloyd, but maybe the sound has no effect on Molly, or maybe the park hadn't finished designing protective measures before it was closed down. But as always, I want to know what you think. What bits of Indigo Park lore did we miss? What do you think will happen in Chapter 2, and who do you think is behind the events of the park? And why are there no Rambley keychains in the Critter Corner gift shop? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Here's another one of my videos, and as always, may your nightmares be strangely cozy.